After 6 months working in Arizona, the day I drove home was the day my father and brother stole my roof from over my head. They stood on the porch laughing while strangers moved furniture into the house I grew up in. "Welcome home, Willa," my brother said, smirking. "Oh, wait, I forgot. You're homeless now." My father nodded coldly beside him. "I sold the house to save Marcus from his loan sharks. That's what a father does for his son." I stood there, luggage still in my car, feeling like my heart had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. But then I smiled, and that smile made both men in front of me go pale. Because the house they'd just sold had never belonged to them. My name is Willa Davis, and I'm 34 years old. This is the story of how my mother protected me from beyond the grave, and how I learned that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's survival. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. I grew up in a construction family just outside Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My mother, Sarah, founded the small business that kept our family afloat, but whenever anyone asked, my father, Richard, was always introduced as the boss. That's just how things were. My brother Marcus, 4 years older than me, was always the golden child. He got the bigger portions at dinner, the later curfew, the forgiveness when he wrecked Dad's truck at 17. I learned early not to be jealous. Instead, I focused on school. I studied hard, stayed out of trouble, and tried to make myself useful. When Marcus dropped out of community college after one semester, Dad just shrugged and said boys need time to find themselves. When I asked if I could take engineering classes, Dad said it wasn't really a field for women, but if I insisted, I'd have to pay my own way. So I did. My mother was different. She'd watch me sketch building designs at the kitchen table and smile this sad, knowing smile. "Willa," she told me once when I was 15, "you have something your brother doesn't. You have responsibility and conscience." I didn't understand what she meant then. I thought she was just trying to make me feel better about being second best. "One day you'll understand why I'm teaching you to stand on your own," she'd say, her hand gentle on my shoulder as we looked over my homework together. She'd spent her whole life building something from nothing, and she wanted me to have that same strength. Mom was the one who drove me to my college orientation. She was the one who showed up at my graduation, beaming with pride. Dad came too, but he spent most of the ceremony on his phone, dealing with something Marcus had gotten into. I remember Mom squeezing my hand and whispering, "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Never forget that." I wouldn't forget, but I didn't know then that those words were part of a much bigger plan. Mom died of cancer when I was 22, just 3 months after I graduated with my engineering degree. The tumor had been growing for 2 years, but she'd hidden it from everyone until it was too late. She wanted us to focus on our futures, she said, not on her dying. Marcus didn't come to the funeral. He called Dad the morning of the service to say he had an important business opportunity he couldn't miss. Later, I found out he'd been at a casino in Atlantic City. Dad made excuses for him. "Your brother grieves differently," he told me. "He can't handle emotional situations." I handled them. I planned the funeral, greeted the guests, held Dad while he sobbed. 3 weeks later, I got a call from a lawyer I'd never heard of, Thomas Wright. "Your mother asked me to contact you," he said, his voice gentle but serious. "There are some documents she wanted you to have. Can you come to my office? Alone." I drove to his office in downtown Pittsburgh on a gray October afternoon, confused and grieving. Thomas was a kind-faced man in his late 40s with sad eyes. He handed me a manila envelope across his desk. Inside was a deed transfer dated 2 years earlier, when I'd just turned 21. The house, our family home, had been transferred from my mother's name to mine, complete with notarized signatures and county stamps. And there was a letter, in Mom's handwriting. "My dearest Willa," it began. "By the time you read this, I'll be gone, and I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to see the woman you'll become. But I need you to know something. This house came from my family, and I've watched for years as your father and brother took everything for granted. They love you, but they don't know how to protect what matters. I want you to have security, even if that means keeping secrets. This house is yours. Guard it carefully. Love, Mom. My hands shook as I read it 3 times. Thomas waited while I processed what I'd just learned. Finally, I looked up at him. Does my father know? No, Thomas said quietly. Your mother specifically instructed me to keep this confidential unless you chose to disclose it, or unless it became necessary to protect your interests. I sat there in that office for a long time, turning the deed over in my hands. Part of me wanted to march home and tell Dad everything. But another part, the part that had watched him favor Marcus my entire life, hesitated. What should I do? I asked. Thomas folded his hands. That's entirely your decision, Willa. But your mother trusted you to know when the time was right. I made my choice that afternoon. I would keep the secret. Dad had just lost his wife. He needed to feel like he still had control over something. As long as he didn't sell the house or put it at risk, what harm was there in letting him believe he owned it? I was naive. I see that now. I took a job with a construction management firm that sent me all over the eastern United States, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina. I was good at it, really good. Within 2 years, I was managing major infrastructure projects. Within 5, I was one of the youngest senior project engineers in the company. And every month, I sent $2,000 home. Dad said it was to help with bills, since Marcus was between opportunities and living at home. I told myself I was being a good daughter. I told myself this was what family meant. I came home 2 or 3 times a year. Each time, Marcus looked worse, heavier, more distant, more dependent on Dad's excuses. And each time, I noticed Dad looking older, more worn down, more trapped by the son he couldn't say no to. But I told myself it wasn't my problem. I had my own life to build. I was wrong about that too. The phone calls started about a year ago. At first, they were casual. Hey, honey, Dad would say. Marcus is in a tight spot. Could you help him out with 5,000? He'll pay you back next month when his deal comes through. I sent the money. I always sent the money. Then it was 10,000, then another 5. Just until he gets on his feet, Dad promised. Marcus never called me himself. He never said thank you. The money just disappeared into whatever hole he'd dug for himself, and I was expected to fill it without question. When I came home for a weekend last spring, I saw how bad things had gotten. Dad looked exhausted, 10 years older than he should. Marcus barely acknowledged me, disappearing into his room most of the time I was there. The house felt heavy with secrets and shame. I found the letter by accident. I'd taken the trash out to the curb and saw it crumpled at the bottom of the bin. A notice from a predatory lending company. Final warning, it read. Marcus Davis owes $85,000. Payment is due immediately, or we will pursue collection through all available means. $85,000. My brother had borrowed nearly 6 figures from loan sharks, and my father apparently knew. I confronted Dad that night. How long has this been going on? He couldn't meet my eyes. Marcus made some bad investments. He's working on fixing it. Bad investments? Dad, these are criminals. He's my son, Dad's voice cracked. I can't abandon him. What about me? The question came out before I could stop it. I've sent you almost $200,000 over the years. Where did that money go? Dad just shook his head and walked away. I left the next morning without saying goodbye. I didn't know then that it was about to get so much worse. The call came on a Tuesday night in late October. I was on a construction site in Phoenix reviewing blueprints by floodlight when my phone buzzed. Dad's name on the screen made my stomach clench. He never called this late unless something was wrong. Hello? Willa. His voice was flat, businesslike, cold in a way I'd never heard before. I need to tell you about the house. I stepped away from the noise of the generators. What about it? I'm selling it. I've already accepted an offer. The buyers are moving in next month. The desert wind suddenly felt freezing. You're selling Mom's house? It's my house, he corrected sharply. And yes, Marcus needs the money to clear his debts, and I'm tired of maintaining such a big place. I'll move into a smaller apartment. Dad, you can't just. I can, and I am. You don't live here, Willa. You haven't lived here in over a decade. You've built your life elsewhere. This doesn't concern you. My mouth opened and closed. That house is Mom's legacy. You can't sell it for Marcus's gambling debts. I'm doing what a father has to do. His voice turned hard. Your brother is in real danger. Those men he owes aren't patient. I won't let my son get hurt because you're attached to bricks and wood. Can I buy it from you? The words tumbled out desperately. I'll match whatever offer you got. It's already done. The contract is signed. The buyers are a nice young family with 2 kids. They're excited to make it their home. When were you planning to tell me? I'm telling you now. A pause. The closing is in 2 weeks. I thought you should know. He hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the Arizona night, holding my phone, feeling like I'd just been punched in the chest. And then I remembered something. The house wasn't his to sell. I called Thomas Wright at 7 the next morning, Pennsylvania time. He answered on the 3rd ring, probably surprised to hear from me after 12 years. Willa, is everything all right? I told him everything in a rush. Marcus's debts, Dad's decision, the closing in 2 weeks. The deed I have, the one Mom filed, it's still valid, right? He can't legally sell the house? The transfer has never been revoked, Thomas confirmed. You are the sole legal owner. If your father sells the property, it's fraud. The sale won't be valid, and he could face criminal charges. My relief was quickly replaced by a harder question. What should I do? You could stop the sale now, Thomas said carefully. I could send a letter to the buyer's attorney, inform them of the situation. The transaction would be immediately voided. But that would be the merciful option. He paused. Willa, I have to ask, do you want mercy? After what your father and brother have done? I thought about 12 years of sending money home, of being treated like an afterthought, of watching Marcus drain our family dry while I held everyone together from 1,000 miles away, of Dad standing on that porch someday, laughing while I stood there homeless. What happens if I let the sale go through? I asked quietly. Your father commits fraud. You have every legal right to reclaim your property and hold him accountable. The buyers would have to be compensated, likely by your father and brother. It would be public, messy, painful, but true. Yes, Thomas said softly. It would be true. I stared out my hotel window at the Phoenix skyline, watching the sun rise over the desert. How long would I have after the sale to contest it? You'd have several months. But Willa, are you sure you want to go down this road? You can't come back from it. I thought of my mother's letter. Guard it carefully. I'm sure, I said. Let them sell it. Then we'll see what happens. I spent that night sitting in my hotel room, unable to sleep. Part of me felt guilty. Wasn't I setting a trap for my own family? But another part, the part that had been pushed aside and taken for granted for 34 years, felt something else entirely. Clarity. I called Thomas back the next morning. I've made my decision. I won't interfere with the sale, but I need you to prepare everything. Certified copies of the deed, Mom's letter, a timeline of all the transfers I've made to Dad over the years. When do you want to use these documents? Thanksgiving, I said. The whole family always gathers at the house. I want everyone there when the truth comes out. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Willa, that's 6 weeks after the closing. Your father and brother will have already sold the house by then. The buyers will be living there. I know, I said. That's the point. I want them to see what they've done. I want witnesses. This will destroy your family. No, I said quietly. They destroyed it. I'm just refusing to pretend anymore. Thomas sighed. All right, I'll prepare everything. But Willa, once you do this, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? I thought about Mom, making secret arrangements to protect me because she knew what was coming. She'd loved Dad, loved Marcus, But she'd loved me more than she loved their egos. She'd chosen truth over peace. "I'm ready," I said. "They taught me family means sacrifice. It's time they learned what I've been sacrificing all these years." "I'll be there on Thanksgiving," Thomas promised, "as your witness and your counsel." I hung up and went back to work. I had 6 weeks to prepare, 6 weeks to strengthen myself for what was coming, 6 weeks until everything changed. I drove 28 hours from Arizona to Pennsylvania, barely stopping except for gas. I'd timed it perfectly. I arrived the day after the closing, when the new owners would be moving in. I wanted to see it. I needed to see what my father and brother had done. When my car turned onto our street, I saw the moving truck first. Then I saw them, Dad and Marcus, standing on the porch like they owned it, which, of course, they thought they did. A young couple was directing movers, two small children playing on the lawn I used to mow. The woman looked excited, pointing at different rooms visible through the windows. My chest tightened. I pulled into the driveway, got out slowly. My legs felt shaky after the long drive, or maybe from what was about to happen. Marcus saw me first. His face split into a grin that made my skin crawl. "Welcome home, Willa," he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh wait, I forgot. You're homeless now." Dad stood beside him, arms crossed. There was no apology in his eyes, no guilt, just cold finality. "I sold the house, Willa. Marcus needed the money. That's what a father does for his son." The young couple stopped directing the movers, suddenly aware of tension they didn't understand. The woman, she couldn't have been more than 30, looked uncomfortable. "Is everything okay?" Marcus ignored her, still focused on me. "You shouldn't have driven all this way, sis. There's nothing here for you anymore. Maybe this'll teach you that family comes first." He said it like I was the one who'd abandoned them. I stood there, my luggage still in the trunk, and felt something inside me shift. This was the moment. This was when I could break down, or I could stand up. I smiled. Both men's expressions changed instantly. They knew that smile wasn't surrender. "Something funny?" Marcus snapped. I looked him straight in the eye. "Just thinking about the house you sold." "What about it?" Dad's voice had an edge now. He could sense something was wrong. I kept my voice calm, almost pleasant. "The house you just sold. It doesn't belong to you." Silence. Even the movers seemed to pause. Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. "What are you talking about? Of course it's Dad's house. He inherited it when Mom died." "No," I said. "He didn't." The young man, the buyer, stepped forward, looking worried now. "I'm sorry, is there a problem with the title? Our lawyer said everything was clear." "Your lawyer was wrong," I said, pulling out my phone. "The house was transferred to me 12 years ago. My mother signed it over when I turned 21. "That's ridiculous," Dad said, but his voice wavered. "Sarah would never—" "She did, and I have the documents to prove it." I opened my email and showed them the PDF Thomas had sent me, the recorded deed transfer, complete with county stamps. "See? Recorded with the county in 2013, 2 years before Mom died." The wife's hand went to her mouth. "We just paid $340,000 to someone who had no legal right to sell," I finished. "I'm sorry, I truly am, but the transaction isn't valid." Marcus's face went purple. He stepped toward me, and for a second I thought he might actually hit me. "You're lying. You're making this up to destroy us." "Why would I make this up?" I asked calmly. "Call the county recorder's office if you don't believe me. The document is public record." Dad sank down onto the porch steps, his face gray. "Sarah wouldn't do this to me. She wouldn't." "She didn't do it to you," I said quietly. "She did it for me, because she knew exactly what would happen if you had control." I gestured at the scene around us. "And look, she was right." Marcus grabbed my arm. "You can't do this. You're not taking the house." "I'm not taking it," I said, pulling free. "It's already mine. It's always been mine. You just sold something that was never yours to sell." Marcus's face twisted with rage. You planned this. You let us sell the house just so you could humiliate us. No, I said. I kept quiet because I wanted Dad to feel like he still had dignity after Mom died. I let you both live here rent-free. I sent you money every single month, and this is how you repay me, by stealing my home and laughing about it. Don't you dare act like the victim, Dad said, finally finding his voice. He stood up, trembling. You abandoned this family. You moved away, chased your career, only came home a few times a year. We needed you, and you chose yourself. I sent you $2,000 every month for 10 years, I said. That's $240,000, Dad. How is that abandonment? The young couple exchanged shocked looks. The wife whispered something to her husband. Money isn't the same as being here, Dad said. Your brother needed family support, not a sister who threw cash at us from a distance. Marcus needed consequences, I shot back, not enablers. And you're so busy protecting him that you just committed fraud. I'm calling the police, Marcus snarled, pulling out his phone. You're trespassing. Please do, I said. I'd love to explain to them how you sold property you don't own. Marcus lowered the phone, uncertainty flickering across his face. The young husband cleared his throat. We need to call our lawyer. We just put our entire savings into this house. I know, I said, turning to them with genuine sympathy. And I'm sorry. I really am. But you need to know my father and brother defrauded you. The person you should be angry at is them, not me. How can you do this to your own father? Dad's voice broke. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked. Besides take my money and disrespect my existence? Marcus stepped close, his voice low and threatening. If you go through with this, you'll never have a family again. Everyone will know what you did. I looked him straight in the eye. Good. Then everyone will know the truth. I turned back to the young couple, who looked shell-shocked. I'm so sorry you got caught in this. What are your names? John and Emma Miller, the husband said numbly. We have 2 kids. This was supposed to be our forever home. My heart ached for them. They were innocent in all this. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to give you my lawyer's contact information. His name is Thomas Wright. He'll help you get your money back. I wrote Thomas's number on a piece of paper and handed it to Emma. She took it with shaking hands. I'll make sure you don't lose a cent, I promised. This isn't your fault. But unfortunately, the sale isn't legally valid. Where will we go? Emma whispered. We already sold our apartment. Don't move anything else in today, I said. Call Thomas. He'll walk you through the next steps. I glanced at my father and brother. And he'll explain exactly who's responsible for making you whole. Marcus exploded. We don't have that money. I used it to... He stopped abruptly, but everyone knew what he'd been about to say. Used it to pay off gambling debts. Then you'll figure it out, I said coldly. Sell your car, Marcus. Get a job. Do whatever you have to do. These people are getting their money back. I looked at Dad. You have 2 weeks to move out. I'm hosting Thanksgiving here this year, and I've invited the whole family. That's when we're going to have a real conversation about what happened. You can't kick me out of my own house. It's not your house, I said. It never was. And if you're not out by Thanksgiving, I'll have the sheriff remove you. Marcus laughed bitterly. You really think the family will side with you? They'll see you for what you are, a cold, calculating... They'll see the truth, I interrupted. For the first time in decades, our family will see the truth, and we'll find out who values honesty over comfortable lies. I walked back to my car, got in, and drove to a hotel. My hands didn't start shaking until I was alone in the room. 3 days later, Marcus called. It was 2 a.m, of course it was. He always chose moments when he thought I'd be vulnerable. Willa. His voice was different, soft, almost broken. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat up in bed, instantly awake and wary. What do you want, Marcus? I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I could hear something in his voice that might have been crying. I've been a terrible brother. I've taken advantage of you. taken advantage of Dad. I'm ashamed. I said nothing, waiting. I'm living in my car right now. Did you know that? I have nowhere to go. The people I owed money to, I paid them, but now I have nothing left. That's not my problem. I know it's not. A pause. But we're family, Willa. That has to mean something. Can't we work this out, privately, without destroying everything? There it was, the real ask. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Let Dad stay in the house. Keep your name on the deed if you want. I don't care about that. Just don't humiliate him in front of the whole family. He's an old man. This will kill him. He tried to make me homeless. He was desperate. He was trying to help me, and Marcus's voice cracked convincingly. I'm the one who should be punished, not him. Please, Willa. I'll do anything. I'll get a job. I'll pay you back. Just give me a chance to make this right. I almost believed him. For just a second, I almost believed he'd changed. Then I remembered. I'd heard this exact speech 5 years ago, after he'd borrowed $15,000 and spent it at a casino. I'd heard it 3 years ago, when he'd totaled Dad's truck. I'd heard versions of this my entire life. No, I said. You're really this cruel? You're going to destroy your family for revenge? I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just stopping the lies. If that destroys us, we were already broken. You'll regret this. His voice turned cold. You'll lose everyone. Maybe, I said, but I'll still have myself. I hung up, blocked his number, and tried to go back to sleep. Mid-video CTA 1. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. Do you think I made the right choice? Should I have stopped the sale before it happened and handled this privately? Or was letting them commit fraud and then exposing it justified? I genuinely want to know what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And please, subscribe if you haven't already. Knowing you're listening helps me tell this story. Now let me tell you about Thanksgiving. I spent 2 weeks planning the most important dinner of my life. I sent invitations to everyone, my Aunt Linda, my Uncle Robert, my 4 cousins and their families. I'm hosting Thanksgiving at Mom's house this year, I wrote. I'd love for everyone to be there. Dad and Marcus couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. They'd moved into a cramped apartment across town, but they'd promised the family they were just helping me host this year. I hired a catering company to handle the food. This wasn't about cooking, it was about truth. I cleaned the house thoroughly, hung photos of Mom throughout the rooms. I wanted her presence felt. Thomas Wright agreed to attend as an old family friend. He brought 3 folders of documents, one for each key family member who needed to see the evidence. The morning of Thanksgiving, I set the dining room table for 15 people. I placed sealed envelopes at 3 seats, one for Dad, one for Aunt Linda, one for Uncle Robert. Inside each envelope was a copy of the deed transfer, Mom's letter, and a spreadsheet showing every payment I'd made to the family over 12 years. I wore a navy blue dress that Mom had always loved. I put on the pearl earrings she'd given me for my college graduation. I wanted to look calm, professional, unshakable, because I was about to break everything apart. The guests started arriving at 2. Aunt Linda came first, bringing her famous sweet potato casserole. "Oh, honey, the house looks beautiful," she said, hugging me. "You've done such a nice job." "Thanks, Aunt Linda." I hugged her back, knowing that in a few hours, she might never hug me again. Uncle Robert arrived next, his voice booming. "About time someone got the family together properly. Richard, Marcus, good to see you boys." One by one they came. My cousins David and Rachel and Michael and Jennifer, with their spouses and children. The house filled with noise and warmth and the smell of turkey and pumpkin pie. Dad and Marcus sat at opposite ends of the table, both looking tense. They knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. At 4 o'clock, when everyone had filled their plates, I stood up, tapped my wine glass gently. "Everyone, I have something I need to say." The room fell quiet. 15 faces turned toward me. Some smiled, expecting a toast. Others, particularly Dad and Marcus, looked wary. First, I want to thank everyone for coming, I began. My voice was steady. 12 years of managing construction sites had taught me how to project calm, even when my heart was racing. It means a lot to have the whole family together in this house. Hear, hear, Uncle Robert raised his glass. This house has a lot of history, I continued. Mom and Dad lived here for 30 years. Marcus and I grew up here. So many memories. I paused. And I need to tell you all something important about it. Aunt Linda smiled encouragingly. What is it, sweetheart? 3 weeks ago, Dad sold this house to pay off Marcus's gambling debts. The room went silent. You could hear someone's fork clatter against a plate. Uncle Robert frowned. What are you talking about? You said you were hosting. I am hosting, I said. Because the house is mine. It's been mine for 12 years. Now everyone was staring. Dad had gone pale. Marcus's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. When Mom died, I said, and my voice caught slightly on her name, I learned that she'd transferred ownership to me when I turned 21. She did it quietly without telling Dad, without telling anyone except her lawyer. I picked up my envelope and opened it, pulled out the deed and held it up. This is the transfer document. Recorded with the county in 2013, notarized and completely legal. Willa, Dad started, but I kept going. Dad sold this house without my knowledge or permission. He and Marcus stood on the porch and told me I was homeless. They laughed about it. I pulled out Mom's letter next. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it. And this is the letter Mom left me, explaining why she did it. I read Mom's letter aloud, my voice breaking only once. My dearest Willa, by the time you read this, I'll be gone, and I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to see the woman you'll become. But I need you to know something. This house came from my family, and I've watched for years as your father and brother took everything for granted. Aunt Linda's hand went to her mouth. Uncle Robert's face was unreadable. I continued reading. They love you, but they don't know how to protect what matters. I want you to have security, even if that means keeping secrets. This house is yours. Guard it carefully. When I finished, I looked up. Tears were streaming down Aunt Linda's face. Several of my cousins looked stunned. Mom knew, I said simply. She knew that Dad would sacrifice my security for Marcus's comfort, and she protected me the only way she could. Thomas Wright stood, introducing himself. I'm the attorney who helped Mrs. Davis arrange this transfer. I can confirm that every document Willa has shown you is authentic and legally binding. Uncle Robert found his voice. Richard, is this true? Did you really sell your daughter's house? Dad's mouth opened and closed. I thought, Sarah never told me. You thought the house was yours to sell, I finished. You didn't ask me. You didn't consider me. You and Marcus stood on that porch and mocked me while strangers moved into my home. Marcus shot to his feet. You don't understand. I was in danger. Those men I owed money to were your problem, I said. Not mine, not Dad's. Yours. Family helps family, Marcus shouted. I opened the second document, the spreadsheet. I've helped. For 10 years, I sent $2,000 home every single month. That's $240,000. I passed copies around the table. These are the bank transfer records. Every single payment. My cousin David stared at his copy, his eyes widening. 240,000? Where did that money go? Aunt Linda asked, her voice sharp. Richard? Dad couldn't answer. Most of it went to cover Marcus's mistakes, I said quietly. And I gave it freely because I loved you both. Until you decided I was disposable. Uncle Robert turned to Dad, his face flushed. You sold her house? Your daughter's house? For his gambling debts? I was trying to help my son by stealing from your daughter? Uncle Robert's voice rose. That's not help, Richard. That's favoritism taken to criminal levels. Criminal? Dad looked genuinely shocked. It's family business. It's fraud, Thomas interjected calmly. Mr. Davis sold property he didn't own. That's a crime. Aunt Linda stood up, walked around the table and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry we didn't see it." "You had no way of knowing," I said. She pulled back, her face fierce. "Sarah told me something before she died. She said, 'Linda, if I can't protect Willa, you have to.' I didn't understand then. I thought she was just being dramatic because of the cancer." She looked at Dad with something like disgust. "But she knew. She knew you'd do exactly this." My cousin Rachel, who was 29 and had always been close to Marcus, spoke up quietly. "Uncle Marcus borrowed $5,000 from my mom last year. He said he'd pay it back in a month. We never saw it again." David nodded. "Same here. He got $3,000 from me for a business investment. Never heard about it again." One by one, the younger cousins shared their stories. Marcus had borrowed from nearly everyone, always with promises, never with repayment. Marcus's face went from red to white. "I was going through a hard time." "You've been going through a hard time for 20 years, Aunt Linda snapped. "And Richard has enabled every second of it." Uncle Robert shook his head slowly. "I can't believe this. Sarah must have been beside herself." "She was," I said softly. "That's why she did what she did. She couldn't change Dad or Marcus, but she could protect me." Dad finally spoke, his voice broken. "I never meant to hurt you, Willa." "But you did," I said. "You chose Marcus over me, over and over, until there was nothing left of our relationship but money and disappointment." Mid-video CTA 2. This was the moment I'd been preparing for, standing in front of my entire family, exposing the truth. If you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members, you know how hard this is. Leave a comment sharing your story. You're not alone in this struggle. And please, hit that like button if you believe setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, not selfishness. Let me tell you what happened next. Marcus slammed his hands on the table. "This is bullshit! Willa planned this whole thing. She deliberately let us sell the house so she could trap us. She's cold and calculating and—" "Careful," Thomas said mildly. "You're in front of witnesses." "I don't care," Marcus's voice cracked. "She let us think we were safe. She could have stopped this at any time, but she wanted to humiliate us publicly. That's sick." "You're right," I said, and Marcus blinked in surprise. "I could have stopped it. I could have told you years ago that I owned the house. I chose not to." "See?" Marcus gestured wildly. "She admits it." "I chose not to," I continued, "because I wanted Dad to feel like he still had dignity. He'd just lost Mom. I didn't want to take away his sense of control, too. So I stayed quiet and let him believe he was taking care of the house Mom loved." My voice hardened. "But you're right that I made a choice 3 weeks ago. When Dad called to tell me he'd sold my home out from under me, not asked, told, I chose not to interfere. I chose to let you both commit fraud. Do you know why?" Silence. "Because I knew that if I just told you the truth, you'd find a way to make me the villain. You'd say I was lying, or Mom was confused, or the documents were fake. So I let you act. I let you show everyone exactly who you are." Uncle Robert was nodding slowly. "You stood on that porch and laughed at me," I said to Marcus. "You told me I was homeless. You enjoyed it. So yes, I trapped you. I trapped you with your own cruelty." Dad put his head in his hands. "We're still family." "No," Aunt Linda said sharply. "You don't get to hide behind that word anymore, Richard. Not after what you've done." Marcus looked around the table desperately. "You're all going to let her do this? Let her destroy the family?" "You destroyed it," David said quietly. "You and Uncle Richard. Willa is just making sure everyone sees what's left." I took a deep breath. This was the hardest part. Not the reveal, but what came after. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Dad, you can stay in this house, but under specific conditions." Dad looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "First, you and Marcus have to repay John and Emma Miller every penny of their deposit. $340,000. I don't care how you do it, but those people are getting their money back." I don't have that kind of money, Dad started. Then sell something. Marcus can sell his car and everything else he owns. You can take out a loan. Figure it out. The Millers have children. They need stability. You will not ruin their lives because of your choices. Marcus opened his mouth, but Aunt Linda shot him a look that shut him up. Second, I continued. Marcus moves out. Immediately. You're 38 years old. It's time to stop living off family members and actually build a life. Where am I supposed to go? Marcus demanded. That's not my problem, I said flatly. But you're not living here anymore. I'm done watching you drain everyone around you. Third, I said, looking at Dad, you start going to therapy. There are counselors who specialize in family dynamics and gender bias. You need to understand why you've treated me the way you have. Therapy? Dad looked bewildered. You made every decision based on the idea that Marcus matters more because he's male. That's not love. That's prejudice. If you want any relationship with me going forward, you need to work on that. Uncle Robert whistled low. Those are serious conditions. This is a serious situation, I said, and if Dad refuses any of these conditions, I'll pursue legal action for fraud. Not because I want revenge, but because actions have consequences. I turned back to Dad. So what's it going to be? Real change or losing your daughter forever? Dad sat there for what felt like an eternity, his hands trembling on the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know you did, I said, and I meant it. I wasn't trying to torture him. I just needed him to understand. My father, your grandfather, he always said that men carry the family name forward, that sons are the legacy. Dad's eyes were wet. I grew up believing that protecting Marcus was my most important job. And what about me? I asked softly. He couldn't look at me. I thought you'd get married, have a husband to take care of you. I thought. He trailed off, finally understanding how wrong that sounded. You thought I wasn't your responsibility long term, I finished. Just a temporary family member until I became someone else's problem. I never thought of it that way, Dad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Aunt Linda leaned forward. Sarah saw this, didn't she? She saw what you were doing and tried to tell you. Dad nodded slowly. She'd get so angry when I'd bail Marcus out of trouble. She'd say I was crippling him, not helping him, but he's my son. He finally looked at me, really looked at me. You're my daughter, and I failed you. I see that now. A tear rolled down his cheek. Your mother knew I'd do this. She loved me, but she loved you more. More than she loved my ego. More than she loved keeping peace. His voice broke. I lost Sarah, and now I'm losing you, because I couldn't see what was right in front of me. Marcus stood abruptly. Dad, don't let her manipulate you. Sit down, Dad said, his voice suddenly hard. You've done enough damage. Marcus stared at him. You're taking her side? I'm taking responsibility, Dad said. Finally. Marcus looked around the table, searching for allies. He found none. Aunt Linda stood up. Marcus, you need to leave, now. I'm not going anywhere. You've stolen from half the people at this table, she said, her voice like steel. You've lied, manipulated, and blamed everyone but yourself for your problems. You're 38 years old and you've never held a steady job. When does it end? I've had bad luck. Bad choices, David interrupted. You've made bad choices, and you've expected everyone else to fix them. Rachel, who'd always defended Marcus before, spoke up. Remember when you borrowed money from my mom for cancer treatment? You said you had a tumor. She was terrified for you. She gave you everything she'd saved. Marcus paled. There was no tumor, was there? Rachel's voice shook. You used her fear to get gambling money. I was going to pay her back. With what? Rachel shouted. You never pay anyone back. You just move on to the next person you can use. My cousin Jennifer, quiet until now, added, You called me 2 months ago asking for rent money. Said you'd been laid off. I sent you $1,200 because I didn't want you to be homeless. She looked at Dad. Was he even employed? Dad shook his head miserably. You're not a victim, Aunt Linda said. You're a predator. You find people who love you and you bleed them dry. Marcus's face contorted. You're all turning on me because of her, he pointed at me. She's poisoned you against me. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. I just stopped covering for you. Thomas Wright spoke up. Mr. Marcus Davis, I'd advise you to leave this gathering now. You're becoming aggressive, and that won't help your situation. Marcus grabbed his coat. At the door, he turned back to Dad. When you need me, don't come crying. I won't forget this. Neither will I, Dad said softly. The door slammed. 3 of the children started crying. The room felt heavy with the weight of what had just happened. But something else, too. Something that felt almost like relief. The week after Thanksgiving was strange. The house felt both emptier and more peaceful than it had in years. Thomas worked with the miller's attorney to unwind the fraudulent sale. Dad took out a personal loan and liquidated his retirement account to repay them. Marcus sold his car and most of his possessions, contributing about $60,000 to the total. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The Millers were gracious about it, more so than they had any right to be. Emma wrote me a note. Thank you for being honest, even though it must have been hard. We found another house. A better one, actually. We hope your family heals. I put that note on my refrigerator. On the hard days, I looked at it and remembered that truth, however painful, was better than comfortable lies. Dad moved into the small bedroom upstairs, the one that used to be Marcus's. He paid me $800 in rent each month, transferred from his account to mine on the first. He'd never paid me rent before. He'd never acknowledged that I was supporting him. This felt different. Transactional maybe, but honest. Marcus moved in with a friend, then another friend, then another. I heard through Aunt Linda that he was couch surfing, unable to keep any living situation stable for long. Part of me felt guilty, a smaller part than I expected. I started repainting the house. The living room went from beige to a soft blue-gray. I hung my engineering certifications in the hallway, something I'd never done before because it felt like bragging. Dad noticed. I didn't know you had so many awards, he said one evening, standing in the hallway. You never asked, I said. He nodded slowly. I'm starting to realize how much I never asked. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. 2 weeks into December, Marcus called me at midnight. I'd unblocked his number, figuring I should at least give him one last chance to surprise me. Willa. He sounded sober, which was unusual. Don't hang up. I'm listening. I'm sorry, really, truly sorry. I know I've said that before, but... He took a shaky breath. I'm living in my car right now. It's 15 degrees outside. I have nowhere to go. My heart clenched despite everything. Marcus, I'm not asking to move back in, he said quickly. I know I burned that bridge. I'm just asking. Can we talk? Can I come by sometime just to talk? I thought about it, about all the times he'd seemed sincere before, only to disappoint me again. About the pattern of crisis and apology that had defined our entire relationship. Are you getting help? I asked. Therapy? Gamblers Anonymous? Silence. That's what I thought. I don't need therapy, he said, and there was a flash of the old Marcus, defensive, resistant. I need family support. I need people who believe in me. You need accountability, I said, and until you're willing to accept that, I can't help you. So you're going to let me freeze to death? There are shelters. There are programs. I'll text you a list of resources. I kept my voice steady. But I'm not giving you money. I'm not giving you a place to live, not until you prove you're actually changing. This is who you are now? His voice turned bitter. Cold and heartless? No, I said. I just learned that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing myself for them. I hung up before he could respond. Then I texted him 3 shelter addresses and 2 addiction counseling centers. He didn't reply. I blocked his number again. This time I knew it was permanent. Dad started seeing Dr. Helen Martinez, a family therapist who specialized in gender dynamics and favoritism. He went every Tuesday evening. He never talked about the sessions at first, but I could tell they were affecting him. One night in January, about 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, he knocked on my bedroom door. I was reading in bed. "Can we talk?" he asked. I set my book aside. "Sure." He sat in the chair by my desk looking uncomfortable. "Dr. Martinez asked me to tell you something. She said I've been carrying beliefs that hurt you, and I need to say them out loud so I can hear how wrong they sound." I waited. "I believed that sons matter more than daughters," he said, his voice rough. "I believed that a man's job is to ensure his son succeeds and that daughters will be taken care of by their husbands. I believed Marcus needed me more than you did because you were competent and he wasn't." He looked at me, his eyes red. And I never questioned those beliefs. Not even when Sarah begged me to. I just thought she didn't understand. "She understood better than you did," I said quietly. "I know that now." He wiped his eyes. "Dr. Martinez asked me when I last asked about your work, your life. Not about money or logistics, but about what you care about." I thought about it. "I don't think you ever have." That's what I told her, and she asked me why. He shook his head. "I didn't have a good answer, just that I assumed you'd tell me if it mattered." "It always mattered, Dad. You just never acted like it did." We sat in silence for a moment. "What are you working on now?" he asked. "You said you're in project management. What does that mean?" It was such a small question, but it was the first time he'd ever asked. I told him about the bridge I was helping design in North Carolina, about the engineering challenges, the environmental considerations, the community impact. He listened, really listened, for the first time I could remember. When I finished, he said, "Your mother would be so proud of you." "I hope so," I said. "I'm trying to be," he added. "I'm trying to learn how." A week later, a package arrived. It was from Emma Miller. Inside was a tin of homemade cookies and a card with a photograph. The photo showed John and Emma and their 2 children standing in front of a different house, smaller than the one they'd tried to buy, but charming, with a bright red door and a big yard. The card read, "Dear Willa, we wanted you to know that we found our home. It's actually better than the first one, closer to the kids' school, with a neighborhood full of families. We've already made friends with the couple next door. We know what you did was difficult. We know you had to expose your own family to protect us, and we don't take that lightly. Your honesty saved us from losing everything we'd worked for. We also want you to know that we don't blame you for what happened. We blame the people who lied to us. You showed us that integrity matters, even when it's painful. We're teaching our kids that lesson now, using your story, with details changed, of course. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for choosing truth over comfort. We hope your family heals. With gratitude, John, Emma, Sophie, and Lucas Miller." I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I put the photo on my refrigerator, right next to Emma's first note. Dad saw it that evening. He read the card without asking, then stood there for a long moment. "They're good people," he finally said. "Yes. We almost ruined their lives." "Yes," he nodded slowly. "I'm glad you stopped us, even if I didn't know it at the time." It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement, and that was more than I'd expected. In February, I invited Dad and Aunt Linda to dinner. I'd made a simple meal, roast chicken, vegetables, nothing fancy. But after we ate, I pulled out a piece of paper. "I want to talk about how we move forward," I said. Dad looked nervous. Aunt Linda nodded encouragingly. "I've thought a lot about what I need from the people in my life," I said. "And I've realized I've never actually communicated that clearly, so I'm doing it now." I slid the paper across the table, On it, I'd written 5 rules: no loans without a written agreement and repayment plan. My career and choices will be respected, not questioned or diminished. I will not be compared to Marcus or anyone else. If someone violates these boundaries, I will step back without guilt. Love is shown through respect, not just words. These are my boundaries, I said, for everyone in my life, including both of you. Aunt Linda read them and smiled. These are good, honey. Healthy. Dad read them more slowly. The lone one, that's about Marcus. It's about anyone, I said. I'm not a bank. If someone needs financial help, we'll discuss it like adults, with terms, with accountability. And if I violate one of these? Dad asked quietly. I'll tell you. Once. If it happens again, I'll need distance. He nodded. That's fair. More than fair. I'm not trying to punish you, I said. I'm trying to protect myself. For years, I let people treat me like I didn't matter because I was afraid of conflict. I'm done with that. Aunt Linda reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Your mother would be so proud of you. I hope so, I said, because this is what she taught me, not with words, but with actions. She showed me that protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Dad looked at the paper again. Can I keep this? To remind myself? Of course, I said. He folded it carefully and put it in his wallet. March brought warmer weather and an unexpected visitor. I was in the front yard planting flowers when a car pulled up. Marcus got out. He looked different, thinner, older somehow. He walked slowly up the driveway, hands in his pockets. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said before I could speak. I stood, brushing dirt off my knees. Why are you here? I wanted to see the house. He looked at it, the fresh paint, the new shutters, the garden beds I'd been working on. It looks good, better than when Dad had it. Thank you. We stood in awkward silence. I'm working construction in Ohio, he said finally. Grunt work. Loading trucks, mostly. It's not much, but it's something. That's good, Marcus. I'm not going to say I've changed or that I'm better now. I don't know if I am. He kicked at a rock on the driveway. But I wanted you to know I understand why you did what you did. I waited. You tried to help me for years. You gave me money, chances, support, and I wasted all of it because I thought I deserved it without earning it. He finally looked at me. Dad did that to me. He made me think I was special just for existing. You were right to stop enabling it. Are you getting help? I asked. I went to 2 GA meetings. I didn't like them, but I'm trying to stay away from casinos. He shrugged. I'm not expecting a relationship with you. I know that's over. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And thank you. Thank you for what? For being the only person who loved me enough to let me fail. He got back in his car and drove away. I watched until he disappeared around the corner. I never saw him again. Spring turned into summer, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I could breathe. I started taking watercolor painting classes on Saturday mornings. Mom had always loved art, and I found something peaceful about mixing colors and letting shapes emerge on paper. I was terrible at it, but that wasn't the point. The point was doing something just for me. I joined a professional women's engineering network. I went to conferences, made friends who understood the challenges of being a woman in construction. I stopped feeling like I had to prove myself every single day. And I met someone. His name was Daniel, a civil engineer who specialized in sustainable design. We met at a conference in Boston. He asked about my work not because he was being polite, but because he was genuinely interested. He listened when I talked about stress calculations and load-bearing requirements. He asked follow-up questions. On our third date, I told him about my family. All of it. He listened without judgment. That must have been incredibly hard, he said when I finished. It was, I admitted, but it was also necessary. You set boundaries, he said. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. I'd been waiting my whole life for someone to say that. I redecorated my bedroom, Mom's old room. I painted it a soft sage green. I bought new curtains that let in the morning light. I hung photos of places I'd worked, bridges I'd helped build, buildings I'd helped design. Aunt Linda helped me arrange them. "Your mother would love this," she said, standing back to admire the wall. "She always wanted you to celebrate your accomplishments." I looked at the photos, evidence of a career I'd built on my own, a life I'd fought for. "I'm finally learning how," I said. By the time autumn came around again, life had settled into something that felt almost normal. Dad still lived in the upstairs room. He'd been in therapy for nearly 10 months. We had dinner together twice a week, real dinners where we talked about work and books and the news. Not about money, not about Marcus. He'd started volunteering at a community center, teaching basic carpentry to teenagers. "Dr. Martinez said I need to find meaning outside of being a father," he explained. "I need to be a person first." I was proud of him for that. Daniel had become a regular presence in my life. He'd had dinner with Dad 3 times now. The first time had been awkward, but by the third, they were debating the merits of different bridge designs, like old friends. Aunt Linda came by every Sunday for brunch. She'd become my closest family member, the one I called when something good happened, the one I trusted with my real feelings. The house felt like mine now. Not just legally, but emotionally. I'd made it a home instead of a museum to what used to be. But I still thought about Marcus sometimes. Wondered if he was okay. Wondered if he'd ever really change. Aunt Linda had heard he was still in Ohio, still working, still alone. "Do you regret what you did?" Daniel asked me once. I thought about it carefully. I regret that it was necessary. I wish my family had been different. I wish Dad had valued me the way he valued Marcus. I wish Marcus had learned responsibility before he was almost 40. I paused. But do I regret setting boundaries? Do I regret protecting myself and the Millers? No, I don't regret that. "Good," Daniel said. "You shouldn't." The house where I grew up had become the house where I was finally growing into myself. On the 13th anniversary of Mom's death, Dad and I drove to the cemetery together. It was the first time we'd gone as just the two of us since the funeral. The October air was crisp, leaves crunching under our feet. I carried white roses, her favorite. Dad carried a letter. We stood at her grave in silence for a long time. Finally, Dad knelt and placed his letter on the headstone. "What did you write?" I asked. "An apology," he said, "for not listening to her, for not seeing what she saw, for not protecting the gift she gave me, our daughter." My throat tightened. I told her I'm trying to be better, that I'm finally understanding what she tried to teach me. His voice cracked. I told her I'm sorry I was too stubborn to learn while she was alive. I knelt beside him and arranged the roses. "She knew you loved her, Dad." "But did she know I respected her?" He shook his head. "I don't think I did. Not the way I should have." We sat there together, two people learning how to be family in a healthier way. "Mom," I said softly to the headstone, "thank you for protecting me. Thank you for seeing what I couldn't see yet. Thank you for teaching me that loving yourself isn't selfish." Dad reached over and took my hand, something he rarely did. "She'd be proud of you, of the woman you've become, the strength you showed." "She'd be proud of you too," I said, "for being willing to change." We planted a rose bush beside her grave, Dad's idea. "I'll come every week to water it," he promised. I need to remember." As we walked back to the car, I felt lighter. Not healed completely, but healing. And that was enough. I'm sitting on the porch of my house. Not Dad's house, not the family house, but my house. Watching the sun rise over the neighborhood. There's coffee steaming in my favorite mug. The autumn air smells like wood smoke and possibility. People have asked me if I regret what I did. If exposing my father and brother publicly was too cruel. If I should have handled it privately, quietly, the way families are supposed to handle things. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. Sometimes the truth has to be public because private truths get buried under excuses and denial. My mother understood that. She loved Dad and Marcus, but she loved me more than she loved their comfort. She chose my future over their ego, and in doing that, she taught me the most important lesson of my life. You don't need anyone's permission to protect yourself. I lost my brother, maybe forever. That hurts. But I gained something more valuable. I gained myself. I gained the ability to wake up in my own home without resentment. I gained a relationship with my father that's built on honesty instead of obligation. I gained the knowledge that I can set boundaries without guilt. If you're in a similar situation, being taken for granted, being used, being told that your needs matter less than someone else's comfort, I want you to hear this. You deserve respect. You deserve to be valued. And you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. My mother left me more than a house. She left me a blueprint for self-respect. And every day I'm learning to build on that foundation. Setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's love. Love for the person who matters most, yourself. End video CTA. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to tell, and I'm sure it wasn't always easy to hear. But if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members, I hope this helped you feel less alone. If you've had to make a similar choice, please share your story in the comments. There's power in knowing we're not the only ones fighting these battles. And please, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. There are more stories like this, stories about finding strength, setting boundaries, and learning that self-respect isn't negotiable. Remember, you deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve to protect yourself. And anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't have your best interests at heart. Take care of yourselves. You're worth it.